Let's begin with Habakuk, and means embrace or hug. Comes from Habak, to embrace, clasp. So embrace. So I'll begin with the first verse of Habakuk chapter 1. And it reads, the message which the prophet Habakuk saw. We see how Habakuk he is a seer pretty much for he mentions a message which he saw, right? So he refers to one of the two types of prophecy, one that of word and another one of vision. Here it says Chaza, which is the part that refers to him seeing. So also there are some who believe that the true name of the book of Revelation should be Chisayon, which would mean the vision, while Chidgalut means revelation. So some believe the name of the last book is the book of Chidgalut, the revelation, or Chisayon, the vision. Chisayon comes from this verb chaza, to see, and then like I said, it refers to one type of prophecy, and that shows us that Habakkuk was a seer, or he saw. And then it says Habakkuk Hanavi, so the prophet. O Yahweh, till when shall I cry and you not hear? I cry to you violence and you do not save. This verse shows how this prophecy, the whole book, pretty much as it is common with the rest of scriptures, actually, but there are some in which it is clear. This is one of them. This verse shows us that this refers to times, and not just this verse, but the whole book, for it's just starting, and it's already referring to a time in which it would seem like the Almighty hasn't done much salvation for a long time. And as we know, well, obviously he saves us every day through Mashiach, but the point is saving from the corrupt politicians, from saving from just the New World Order, from the enemy, those who worship Satan and are still in power. So it seems like from the point of view of the flesh, like he hasn't been doing much. But we must remember that the flesh is blind. And that's why it is hard when we get stuck in the flesh, which happens because of the stress of the world and affliction and so on and so forth. But we see here how the prophet himself, who we know for sure was a righteous man, a tzaddik, he himself is wondering what is going on. So imagine if the prophet, who is a seer, who is a righteous man, and like we see in scripture, more than righteous, a navi, a prophet, and he's wondering, imagine how would the rest of the world feel, the rest of the people. And that is why there are so many people nowadays who, because of rejecting wisdom and rejecting the spiritual, get immersed in the flesh so much that they end up thinking that there is no creator. So, oh Yahweh, till when shall I cry and you not hear? Obviously, he hears, but the fact that he is not receiving an answer makes him feel like Yahweh isn't hearing. Also, another way of seeing it is that Yahweh is not hearing because of the sin of people, which makes humanity go farther from the Most High. So just like the farther you go from someone, the less he will hear you, the more humanity has gone astray from the path that Yahweh prepared, which is Mashiach, the more that the world has gone the other way 2,000 years ago. Imagine throughout 2,000 years going the wrong way has made humanity be so far away that now it can barely be heard. And like I said, that is from a earthly perspective, of course, for we know Yahweh hears all and he's everywhere. So, oh Yahweh, till when shall I cry and you not hear? I cry to you violence and you do not save. I cry to you violence and you do not save. Look how the verb here, Toshia. I would like to show you guys this word in pictographic. So let me see if there's by any chance a site where I can write in pictographic. I'll just show each letter in pictographic so that you at least get the message. So here we have the word Toshia. Toshia, which pretty much means you will save, but with this law means you will not save. So velo Toshia, and you do not save. So we have here Toshia, you save. So when we refer to the Almighty saving us, we have the word Toshia, you save. If we use this word or write it in pictographic, we see that it starts with a tav, right? So if we go to the pictographic, which is right here, the tav is this one, the cross. And perhaps this one will work better. You see, we come here, this is the tav, which is like the letter, the sound of the T, represents a mark, sign, signal, monument. But as you can see, it is a cross. Yahushua was sacrificed on a cross, and that was a mark of salvation, a mark in time, a signal of redemption, etc. So there's a cross. Then we have the letter Vav, which is a human being. It represents a human being because he was made on the 6th day, which is the numerical value of the letter. But Vav, and its name, is a nail. So let me see. The Vav is the 6th. So here it is. There you go. A peg, wave, or it says add, secure, hook. So it is a nail or a peg, just like Mashiach was nailed to the cross. Mashiach being the man, Yahweh coming as a man, being nailed to a cross. So in Toshia, we have a cross and a nail, and then the letter Shin. And obviously, you guys know that this right here would be Oshia, right? And that is 4 of the 5 letters of the name Yahushua, right? So in the word you save, there are 4 letters of the name Yahushua. The only one missing is the letter Hey, which is the one that represents, well, revelation, and the one that is in pictographic, a human being calling attention. So here we have, like I said, the cross, then the Vav, now the Shin, and the letter Shin is right at the very end. Is this one in the pictographic, and it is a pair of teeth, but it represents sharp pressed E2. Well, and they are kind of missing like a couple more. I think it has to do with the person that made this website. It also represents fire. It represents change, just like the 2 teeth when you eat, press and change the food so that you can digest it. Obviously, those 2 teeth at the front are sharp. So that's why these 4 right here, but it means a lot more. Like I said, change, fire. Now, the fact that it says that it can be a representation of two, we could say with the name, the word Toshia, that on the cross, the man was nailed on his two hands, or there would be two men who would come to be sacrificed, first and last, one on the cross and one at the end. And I say that because the Tav is the last letter of the Aleph Bet, so represents the end, but it's a cross. So Mashiach died on a cross. He came to an end on the cross, and meaning sin came to an end. The accusation from the enemy came to an end. Him in this reality came to an end and then came back to take over all realities. So on the cross, the man was nailed to bring change by the hand or through his job, through his work. For the Yud is a hand, as you're about to see. Letter Yud is the 10th letter. Here it is. So in the pictographic, it's not just the hand, but the whole arm. Body represents a hand, like you can see here. Hand, work, throw, worship. So work, that's what Mashiach came to do, to fulfill the work that Yahweh had prepared for him. And he was nailed also on his two hands, like the Shin and the Yud. So on the cross, a man was nailed on his two hands to bring change through his action, through his deed, through his work, so that people would see. That is because the letter Ain is an eye. And here you have it. There you go. The Ain is an eye. Watch, no shade sowed. We can see that the word Toshia, you save. Sorry. The word Toshia, which means you save, is pretty much saying how he saves. He saves on a cross by coming like a man and being nailed through his two hands to bring a change by his work, so that people can see, so that people can have their eyes open spiritually, and also so that they can see and therefore be saved. Like when Moshe made the snake so that Israel would see and be healed when they believed in Yahweh. So remember that that snake in the desert represents Mashiach being nailed to the cross. And that's why snake in Hebrew, Nachash, is 358. The numerical value of the word Nachash is 358. And that is exactly the same numerical value of the word Mashiach. So the Messiah came to die so that through his death, he could kill the serpent, because 358 minus 358, we have 0. So that is the power that the enemy has now that Mashiach has died, 0. So Toshia. I repeat, on the cross, a man was nailed through his two hands to bring a change through his work, so that people would be able to see, and also so that the fountain of water of life would be open, because Ain, which is the name of the letter, means fountain. Yahushua is the fountain of water, water of life. So I hope that's clear, and we could say a lot more here, I'm sure, but that was just to show how this word is key and how it pretty much has the whole plan of Yahweh coming to earth like a man to be killed on a cross and nailed to bring salvation. So I hope that was clear. So I'll continue with verse 3. Why do you show me wickedness and cause me to see perversity? For ruin and violence are before me, and there is strife and contention, and there is strife and contention arises. Why do you show me wickedness? This could be seen in a couple ways. One of them, the simplest, which is pretty much like we are living nowadays, seeing so much wickedness everywhere and done by those who are supposed to keep the order, those who are supposed to be an example. They are actually being now the ones promoting everything that is evil, everything that goes against the law of the Most High. Those who are calling good evil and evil good, etc. So we are seeing it with our physical eyes. And pretty much also, it is important that Yahweh gives us wisdom, and it is through that wisdom that we are able to actually see what is going on, because the rest of the world sees but doesn't discern what they are seeing. They only look at appearances, so they end up believing the media and all of that. But those who have wisdom from the Ruach are able to see the actual wickedness behind everything, because those who are doing wickedness nowadays also claim, and the rest believe them, that morality is just an invention, that in fact good and evil do not exist, and they depend on each person, and each person decides what's good and what's evil, and that makes no sense, and that is pretty much very evil. So that is one way. Through our physical eyes and a little bit of wisdom, we are able to see how much wickedness there is in the world. So we ask the Almighty, why are you taking so long? Why you allow me to see so much? But also remember that Habakuk, he is a seer, a roe, a prophet that sees. So we can also take from this verse that Yahweh was showing him things that nobody else was seeing, either through dreams or visions. He was able to see the evil that was approaching the world, just like it is nowadays, and it is already kind of happening. Well, it's obviously there's already a much wickedness. I just mean that it'll get worse and worse, mainly for those of the world, but we'll see it. So why do you show me wickedness and cause me to see perversity? For ruin and violence are before me, and there is strife and contention arises. Therefore, the Torah ceases. The Torah ceases, and right ruling never goes forth. For the one hem in the righteous, so that right ruling comes out twisted. And obviously this refers to, well, all types of ruling, not just court rulings, even though those are the main representation of what is this is referring to. Now judges have no judgment. They are bought. They are evil. So they, even when they are not bought, they think in a way as if they were, meaning they think so in such a bad way that they would allow the innocent to go to jail while the guilty to go free. Also, well, we know nowadays people are claiming that a man can be pregnant and can menstruate, and that a woman can, well, can become a man, and all of that they are doing nowadays. So that shows that there is no right ruling. I was seeing earlier a couple parents in in Fox News that came out saying how they had this baby, and the baby is a girl, but she had a phase where she didn't like to wear dresses, which I believe is very normal. But the parents, well, at least in this case, the mother, who was the one being interviewed, basically said that that was a sign and proof, even though the baby couldn't even speak, that was proof that that she wasn't a she, that it was a he. So from then on, they started treating this child like a son instead of a daughter, just because she had a face. But the programming through TV, through everything nowadays is so strong that parents are being influenced to believe such a dumb thing, that a baby who has no idea what's going on around and maybe just uncomfortable with whatever you put in on him or her can decide or know what gender is, as or even less as they are explaining nowadays, which makes no sense at all. It's all confusion. So there is no right ruling from parents, from judges, from uh, the police, from politicians. Never been right ruling there, but anyways. Then it says, uh, for the wrong ham in the righteous, so that right ruling comes out twisted. There was something I wanted. Oh, also, Torah ceases. Um, I think I mentioned it before. So here, if we write Kol Torah, which is the voice of the Torah. Well, you saw how that was voice, right? But then they changed it. So Kol Torah, and that is just because of they use this term a lot. So the voice of the Torah pretty much is the Ruach speaking through the scriptures. It is from this Kol Torah that we get culture, the word culture. So the only way for someone to be actually cultured, or for a population to have true culture, is for them to follow the voice of the Torah. If someone doesn't follow the voice of the Torah, that someone is not cultured. He has no culture. People that do not follow the Torah have no culture. For the true culture is to follow the commandments, to know the Almighty. So going back, look how the verse says, therefore the Torah ceases. So that's why we are living in this world which has no real culture. And because they have made the Torah cease, they don't want to hear it, they don't want to read it, they don't want to know about it. So how will they rule right? How will they be able to judge correctly? There's no way. The Torah is the one that tells us what is true, what is right, what is wrong. So, verse 5. Look among the nations and see. Look among the nations and see, and be amazed. Be amazed, for a work is being wrought in your days, which you would not believe if it were told. This verse is so perfect, and it fits perfectly with our time and what the enemy is preparing to fool the whole world, as we see in Thessalonians, the work of Satan. And there are several things that are part of it. There are several factors, and we could say even the enemy is preparing steps towards that final one, which will be when he will manifest in this world as if he were the Messiah. So he will claim to be the Christ, and the way he'll do it will be so amazing to the eyes of the flesh that the people will believe it, sadly. So look how it says, look among the nations and see and be amazed. Be amazed. For work is being wrought in your days, which you would not believe if it were told. 20 years ago, well, let me not go back that much because well, yeah, pretty much I'm that old already, but um I started with the congregation, right? Like, let me see now. Yeah, about 9 years ago. Well, I didn't. Yahweh started it. So about 9 years ago, the congregation started. I started like, yeah, I was already studying about the end times and about Illuminati and all of that. Well, for a long time, but really into it. Yeah, kind of like 10 years before that, like really, really into it, maybe a little bit less. So like let's say 2000, no, yeah, because remember 2001 with the towers and all of that, that was a big part of being open to all the conspiracy and all of that. So around that time, and obviously there are people who knew before certain things. So, but I just saying, look how close we are to 2000s, right? To the year 2000. And in that time, you would tell somebody UFOs are a thing, and they were like most people, they would still tell you, you're crazy. What are you talking about? Stop watching movies. Now NASA said that they are a thing. They are true. It is true that they don't know what they are. But is anybody saying anything? No, they're quiet because they're so focused on the fear and also on denying everything that they were told for years. Um, if you were to tell people that they were poison, well, you know all the things, poison and pharmaceuticals, um, how, well, all the conspiracies for which they call us crazy, which throughout the last 20 years, they have come into pass. They have become a reality, one after the other, even more and more every time. For instance, Project Blue Beam, that hasn't happened yet, but that will be part of the manifestation of the false Messiah. Project Blue Beam, which has 4 stages. Um, some people believe also that they will use Project Blue Beam to make a alien invasion, like it's very pretty much scare everybody. There may be something that they will call alien invasion eventually, which won't be from another planet. It would be from another dimension, from another reality, pretty much that of the Malachim. They will be fallen angels, not extraterrestrials. So those kind of things that if you were to tell somebody, and even nowadays you tell somebody how programmed they are, and they won't believe it. So if you were to tell 20 years ago, 100 years ago, the control that the enemy would have over the people, the control that social media would have over people, the everything that they've been doing, and I cannot be like too clear because we get blocked like we have already. So they wouldn't believe it. But now imagine even us in our time with everything that we've seen, us being believers, and still Yahweh tells us, if you were told, you wouldn't believe it. And that is why the scripture says that he has to shorten the times, because if it wasn't because of that, even those who are saved would be lost. Even the chosen would be lost if it wasn't because Yahweh shortens the time so that they don't have enough time to fool everybody, 100% of people. So look among the nations and see and be amazed. Be amazed, for work is being wrought in your days, which you would not believe if it were told. Remember, like I have said also, I had an interview. I didn't do the interview, but I had the audio of an interview with a Jewish person called Abraham Finkelstein, and YouTube blocked me for uploading the interview, which I didn't make, because of the things that the Jewish guy was saying, Abraham or Avi Finkelstein. In case you want to look for it, one of the things is that he clearly says that he's not worried about what he was going to say because they had already too much control, and because of the control that they had or have, nobody would believe you if you were to tell him what he was saying. So one of the things that he said is that they are chosen by God, but their God is Lucifer. And he said it like that. And he said there are people who don't like Jewish people who don't like to say it openly, but I don't care. There's nothing you can do, and a bunch of things that he would say out of pride. So look how um here you would not believe it if you were told. Like we tell that to somebody and they will say you're an anti-Semite. I'm not the one saying it. It is him. It's him. It is a Jewish guy, not me. I'm just passing the message. They wouldn't believe you, and they wouldn't believe him even if they hear him. They would say he's crazy. He's just um, making it up or whatever. Because sadly, people are not able to believe the evil that rules over this world. They're not able. They're not able to understand or believe that there are such people. You tell an everyday, I mean, regular person about the enemy, the system, the control they have, and most of the time, one of the first arguments will be, how can there be people that are so evil? I don't believe that's possible. Or that how can so uh, very few people have so much control? Or arguments that actually make no sense because they are just judging from their point of view, from their perspective. So since they are not that evil, they don't believe there can be such evil. That makes no sense. That is not a good way to judge. Just because they haven't seen something, they don't believe it exists. That's why they claim seeing is believing. And that's why they will get stuck, because they will be given something to see that will fool them into the mark, into the lake of fire. For our work is being wrought in your days, which you would not believe if it were told. Yahweh told us and nobody believes it. Yahweh wrote everything in the book of Revelation and nobody cares. And he said in Revelation 18:23 that the whore of Babylon would deceive all the nations through her pharmacies, because she had been getting in bed with the merchants of the world. Those verses, and that last part I paraphrase because it is right before the verse, in fact, but it's right there in Revelation 18. Still, people don't see it, don't believe it, even if you tell them. They will say, you're the crazy one. You are making things up. You are putting things into the scripture, because they don't want to look into it. They're afraid of it. So it's sad, but it's part of the reality we are living in. It is what shows us that the scriptures are true, for they are being fulfilled perfectly. For instance, even that I'm just saying, if we were told how the world would be right now, 40 years ago, we were told that we would be flying cars and a bunch of other things, supersonics and all of that, right? That never happened. What happened? The world went upside down. So even 40, 50 years ago, if people would tell us what would happen, people wouldn't believe it. My point is that now imagine 2,500 years ago, around the time when Habakuk was receiving this prophecy. If 50 years ago was such a change, imagine 2,500. So they are frightening and fearsome. Their right ruling and their exaltation proceed from themselves, not from the Torah. It proceeds from their own beliefs, from their own opinions, from their own emotions, from their own prejudice. So also, like I've been explaining regarding wisdom, how wisdom is necessary to be connected to humility in order for it to grow and become heavenly wisdom, while he who separates from humility ends up having the evil wisdom, earthly wisdom, which is pretty much the spirit of the great whore, the spirit of what they call the queen of heaven. So that is because that wisdom which they have proceeds from themselves, not from the heavens. And that's why they aren't able to accept error. They are frightening and fearsome. Their right ruling and their exaltation proceed from themselves. It is not Yahweh who is exalting them. It is themselves through money, through everything that they do to get where they are. Lying, storing, etc. They are frightening and fearsome. Their right ruling and their exaltation proceed from themselves. Their horses shall be swifter than leopards. The horses shall be swifter than leopards and more fierce than even in wolves. And their horsemen shall charge ahead, and their horsemen come from afar. They fly as the eagle rushing to eat. It mentions the leopard, which is part of the vision that Daniel had, and it represents the empire of Greece, the Greek empire, connects with Alexander the Great in terms of how he came to rule the world. The horses represent war. The wolves, we know, like in the sense of those who eat the sheep, those who get dressed as sheep to be able to destroy the congregation. And the eagles are those who take what is not theirs, those who are up high, taking everything from those under them. And it connects also with the fallen angels. So in a sense, this verse, in the most literal or earthly sense, is referring to war nowadays using technology through which men can fly and attack others from the heavens. But also because of the eagle and the leopard, which we see in Revelation as being part of the beast, in the sense of how the beast looks. The body of the beast is like that of the leopard. So we see pretty much what the beast will bring through his army. It is possible that it goes even beyond that and connects with what we have spoken about in the prophet Joel and the book of Revelation, when he talks about the sixth trumpet, in which there is a possibility that this army will be of Nephilim, hybrids, or even fallen angels acting like extraterrestrials. It is a possibility if it is more spiritual than just the literal sense that would mean physical war. So their horses shall be swifter than leopards and more fierce than even in wolves, and their horsemen shall charge ahead, and their horsemen come from afar. They fly as the eagle rushing to eat. And the fact that he mentions rushing to eat makes reference to that I was saying, because the eagle, when the eagle is going to eat, is when it takes that which doesn't belong to it, either the food of somebody else or the children of somebody else. Many other ways which are understandable when we think about the Illuminati and how they are at the top of the pyramid, destroying those under them just so that they can eat their luxury. So all of them come for violence. All of them come for violence. The direction of their faces is like the east wind, and they gather captives like sand. All of them come for violence. So that is their goal. It's interesting because normally the goal in a war is to conquer another nation, to conquer a people and rule it. Obviously nowadays is to make money. but the enemy's goal is violence, because he knows he's done, he lost. There's nothing he can get other than, as he'll see it, revenge from humanity, which is the source through which Yahweh brought the enemy's demise. So the enemy hates humanity, so all he can think about is violence. He cannot conquer us anymore, for we are under Mashiach. He cannot conquer us like he did when he made Eve eat of the fruit. So the fallen angels, the demons, fallen spirits or evil spirits, they come for violence. They don't come to conquer. They don't come to rule. They don't come to bring peace, of course. They just come to destroy. So their mindset is completely different, or a lot worse, I should say, than the mindset of those going to war. The direction of their faces is like the east wind, the ruach of the east. Scripture tells us that the east wind is the one that brings heat. So like the fire and desolation that will be brought by the abomination. And they gather captives like sand. This is sad, because remember that Yahweh told Abraham that his seed would be like the stars of the heavens, like the stars in the sky, and like the sand by the sea. Then Yahweh told Yitzhak that his seed would be like the stars of the sky, and then he told Yaakov that his seed would be like the sand of the sea. So Abraham was told about the few and the many. Yitzhak was told about the few. Yaakov was told about the many. So the sand of the sea represents the many, the people of Israel, the many who would come from Israel, who would be dispersed across the four corners of the earth, and who will be captured when they don't accept the mark of the beast. They will be captured to be killed, because they won't accept the true doctrine either, sadly, because they are the many who are in the apostasy. And that's why many are called, but few are chosen. Few are chosen to enter eternity without experiencing death. The many were called. They won't hear the call, but they will have to go through death. That's why many go through the wide door, while the few go through the narrow gate. So the east wind is pretty much the ruach. Remember, wind is ruach in Hebrew. It is the ruach that will come acting like the Messiah, claiming to be the Christ, but in fact will bring abomination, desolation. And the beast and the Antichrist, they will capture the many when they realize that the two witnesses were the two witnesses, but they will realize it a bit too late. So now they won't accept the mark, which will be brought to their houses a few days after the death of the two witnesses. And once that happens, they won't accept the mark, so they will be captured to be killed. So, and they gather captives like the sand, like sand. Sand represents Israel. The captives will be the ones who don't accept the mark of the beast. So let's say even a person who isn't from Israel genetically doesn't accept the mark of the beast, by not accepting that and being killed, because once at that moment he or she realized what the true doctrine was, that person, once he or she is killed and resurrected, will now be part of Israel, therefore part of the sand, because the sand will be those who reject the sea. The sea are the nations who will accept the mark of the beast. Verse 10. And they scoff at sovereigns, and princes are a laughing matter to them. Look how this seems to show that it is talking about something higher than this reality, something higher than those humans who are kings of this reality, sovereigns, politicians, princes or presidents, etc. But the enemy, those who are coming, the angels, evil spirits and demons, they scoff at sovereigns, and princes are a laughing matter to them. They laugh at every stronghold, for they pile up earth and seize it. Pile up earth and seize it. Just like they will seize eventually the earth itself, to put it under the abomination of desolation for 1,290 days, as we see in the book of Daniel. Nothing will stop them. They will laugh at whatever the nations, the people will try to do to stop them. Only Mashiach can stop them. Only the Ruach HaKodesh can stop them. Just like the blood of the Lamb on the door of the houses of Israel stopped the spirit of death that was killing the firstborn of the Egyptians. That's why only our belief in Mashiach, having the blood of the Lamb on our heart, which is the gate to our being, only that can protect us from what will come. Then shall he pass on as a wind. Pass on as a wind. Let me go and see that verse 11 to see if it's confirming something that I just said. As Khalaf, Ruach. Not using the verb I mentioned, but look how it says, and it shall pass, just like during Pesach, the spirit would pass over. That's why it is called Passover, because the spirit would pass over each house that had the Ruach. So it was saying, then shall he pass on as a wind. Well, the word that was using there is referring to change. Then he shall change as a wind, or he shall pass on. Then shall he pass on as a wind, and transgress and be guilty, and ascribe this power to his mighty one. So here pretty much we have the beast doing all of that destruction, bringing all of that evil, and then ascribing everything to his mighty one, which will be the dragon, as we see in the book of Daniel. Then shall he pass on as a wind, as a ruach, and transgress and be guilty, where he will be thrown, when it comes to the beast, to the lake of fire alive. When it comes to the abomination of desolation, he will be trapped in hell for 1,000 years and then be released to later be thrown in the lake of fire. So then shall he pass on as a wind, and transgress and be guilty, and ascribe this power to his mighty one. Are you not from everlasting, O Yahweh, my Elohim? Are you not from everlasting, O Yahweh, my Elohim, my set apart one? You do not die, O Yahweh. You have appointed them for right ruling, O rock. You have established them for reproof. So, are you not from everlasting? Therefore, he's the only one who has understanding, knowledge, all knowledge, and right ruling. Are you not from everlasting, O Yahweh, my Elohim, my set apart one? He's set apart from evil. He's set apart from doing wrong. That's why he is the only one who can do a right ruling. He's set apart from all type of mistakes, from all darkness. You do not die. You do not die. There are a lot of people who, since they die, they are bought by others because they are afraid of dying. Obviously, it's more than that what is being said here, but my point is that a lot of those who do not do a right ruling is because they have a fear that eventually leads to them dying without honor, without money, or just the fact that they are threatened to either do something as they are told or be killed. But Yahweh is the one who gives life. Can nobody threaten him? Can nobody go against his will? Even though he gave us free will, which is pretty much the idea of people being able to go against his will, but only in this reality, which is temporal. So it's just like an illusion, whatever they do against his will. At the end, his perfect will be established for eternity because he doesn't die. So he gave a chance to those who do die to see what they would do if they had will, a known will for them to do whatever they want. Are you not from everlasting, O Yahweh, my Elohim, my set apart one? You do not die, O Yahweh. You have appointed them for right ruling, O rock. You have established them for reproof, O rock, which makes reference to him not being moved, to him being a foundation, protection. And that's why it says rock, and then you have established, just like a rock is established on wherever it is placed. O rock, you have established them for reproof. You whose eyes are too clean to see evil. Like I said, for he is set apart. So that's why when somebody does evil, Yahweh turns his face from him. And that is why that person gets lost, because the Almighty is not seen to guide the way through the light that comes from his face. You whose eyes are too clean to see evil. So if Yahweh's eyes are too clean to see evil, why would we look at things that are evil? If we worship him, love him, and want to be like him, why we allowed our eyes to see things that they shouldn't? And I say that so that we always remember, because the flesh will tell you, because you're an adult, because you are a certain age, because whatever, you are allowed to see whatever you want. You should see this, you should see that. Remember, the eyes don't get tired of seeing. They always want to see everything possible. And we need to have control over the eyes, because there are things that we shouldn't see that will give the enemy ideas to get into our head, our heart, etc. So we shouldn't feel dumb, immature, or whatever the flesh is trying to tell us when we decide to skip something that we're seeing on a movie or whatever. If we decide to not see something on the street or whatever, just because it might give us ideas or the enemy material for him to use in our mind. You whose eyes are too clean to see evil. You are not able to look on wrong. You are not able to look on wrong. That doesn't mean that he doesn't know when you do wrong, right? It is obvious, because that is when he decides not to look anymore. So he knows. And obviously, he's everywhere. He knows everything. This is just referring to the fact that he cannot dwell with those who are evil. Just like if you are looking to not be an evil person, then you shouldn't hang with evil people. If you have friends, acquaintances who tend to do or say things that you don't agree with, why are you with them? You should set apart. You should set yourself apart from them. Show them love, support, and everything, but keep yourself at a distance so that their actions and words don't influence you into becoming like them. So you whose eyes are too clean to see evil, you are not able to look on wrong. Why do you look on those who act treacherously? Why do you look on those who act treacherously? Keep silent when the wrong devours one more righteous than he. So once again, I repeat, here we have a righteous man, a Navi, a seer, the prophet Habakuk, who is wondering why. And I say that because if he was wondering all of that, it is obvious that the rest of the world will wonder the same. And not only the same, but get to an extreme to even rebel against the Most High because of their lack of understanding. So by understanding this, by seeing that the prophet was saying this, we should be more like, so it's not just me. So it happens to the best of them. I hope that's clear. Why do you look on those who act treacherously? keep silent when the wrong devours one more righteous than he. A lot of people see this because they all see that there's somebody righteous, they go through something bad, they see somebody evil, and they actually have success. So they think, what is going on? That doesn't seem to be correct. So if they are evil, sadly, because they are being led by the flesh, they will think, oh, there's no creator. And if there's one, he's evil. While the others will actually decide to ask him, why is this going on? Because I know you're not evil. I know you're perfect. I know you're good. So why is this happening? So why do you look on those who act treacherously, keep silent when the wrong devours one more righteous than he? And obviously, the climax of this that is being said here happened when Mashiach came, who never sinned, yet they devoured him, they killed him. And even himself, Mashiach said, Eli, Eli, lama sabachthani. Why have you forsaken me? So imagine if he himself said, why? And would you make man like fish of the sea, like creeping creatures that have no ruler over them? And would you make like would you make men like fish of the sea, like creeping creatures that have no ruler over them? The wicked foe has pulled all of them up with a hook. And you would make man, and would you make man like fish of the sea? Remember, Mashiach came and he said, I will make you fishers of men. And would you make men like fish of the sea, like creeping creatures that have no ruler over them? Interesting that when Mashiach told that to the disciples, was for them to get out, I mean, for the people who were like fish to come out of the sea, which is the realm of the enemy, the one who is over the nations that are represented by the sea. That is why the sea water is salt water and cannot be ingested. So it represents death. It represents the death under which the nations are because of their pagan traditions and so on and so forth. But it's interesting that when the disciples became fishers of men, they would, through the teaching, take people out of the reality of death under which they were, so that they could come up to the true life and not be under the enemy. So obviously, after we believe, we become servants of Yahweh, but we do it to our own will. We willingly become subject to Mashiach. My point is that while we were like fish in the sea, we were under pagan traditions, pagan beliefs. So we were under death. Because of that, we were sinning and sin slaves. So we were slaves to the enemy. But when Mashiach came, we were taken out of that. Like it's saying here, when would you make men like fish of the sea? So I'm just trying to see the positive sense of this verse in the sense that we were like fish, but we were taken out so that the enemy would not rule over us. The wicked foe has pulled all of them up with a hook. This is also interesting because remember the disciples would fish with nets, right? And they would take a bunch of fish out. But this, the wicked one, takes them with a hook. And I'm not saying that to fish like that is evil. I'm just saying the representation between both. With a net, they are not hurt. They are just taken out. They are transported out of the water. While with the hook, they are being hurt. They are being fooled. They were deceived to think that they were going to eat. And that's when they got caught. Like many people who go to church thinking they're going to eat, and that's how they get caught, by a hook, right? And remember, the hook is one of the meanings of the letter Vav, and it's also, the Vav is also a man. So false pastors act like hooks through which people are trapped. So the wicked foe has pulled all of them up with a hook, cut them in his net. So here we go now. Cut them in his net. Obviously, he's talking about the wicked foe. So it is different than what we see with Mashiach telling the disciples to be fishers of men. And gathers them in his dragnet. Therefore, he rejoices and exalts. Just like nowadays, many people had been caught in the net of the enemy through pharmacies, pharmakeia. Therefore, he rejoices and exalts. Therefore, he slaughters to his net, meaning as in sacrifices. Therefore, he slaughters to his net and burns incense to his dragnet. So he does sacrifices to his net because it is through the net that he is able to capture. So to him, the net is his power. The net is his mighty one. So the net is pretty much his idol. And I say that because it is an object. Just like a man can make the net to then go and get the fish, the men make the idol and then go and kneel before the idol. So the enemy will give them certain power, and because of that false power, they will end up slaughtering, doing sacrifices, slaughtering people to him, and also praying to him, which is the representation of burning incense. And also, incense, to burn incense to Yahweh represents praying to Yahweh and the good actions of the righteous. In this case, it is not talking about the righteous. So it is referring to praying and doing works for the enemy. Remember also that Samael is in charge of Sheol, which is like a net that captures or keeps all the souls of the wicked, or at least, if we talk about Sheol as a whole, the souls of those who are dead, but if we talk about hell, then all the wicked. So therefore he slaughters to his net and burns incense to his dragnet, for by them is his portion fat and his food is rich. So an example of idolatry, an example of how the enemy will worship that which will help him to become more evil than he possibly could without those tools, as in technology, all the weapons that he'll use, pharmacies, potions, all of that. Is he therefore to keep on emptying his net? Is he therefore to keep on emptying his net and killing nations without sparing? Is he therefore to keep on emptying his net and killing nations without sparing? Remember that the beast will appear around the time of the second seal to make war, the third world war. Then the abomination of desolation will manifest during the half of the last seven. And that's when the worst part of history will happen for 3.5 years, the last 7 plagues. And I could include, of course, what will happen during the 5th trumpet and the 6th trumpet right before the last 7 plagues. Those 2 trumpets will be very bad. Well, obviously to the wicked, their punishment will be bad in every way whenever it happens. But my point is that the plagues get worse and worse. So the 5th and 6th really connect with what we have been reading here. But then the last 7 plagues, when the abomination desolation will be ruling over the earth, will be even worse. And that is when he will destroy most of humanity. Because during the seals, 1/4 of humanity will be destroyed. During the trumpets, 1/3 of what's left will be destroyed. And then during the last plagues, whatever is left will be destroyed.